So let's talk about Superman versus Guy Gardner in DCKO. Round 3 was a tag team matchup, meaning both of them got to choose a teammate, but not one of the remaining contestants. They got to choose someone that had died in the tournament earlier on. Guy Gardner chose his friend Hal Jordan, and Superman chose Shazam. And before the fight begins, Guy says, "I know what you're thinking. Yes, there were way better choices, more powerful, smarter, handsomer, but me, hey, I always choose my friends." Superman holds up his hand and says, "Well, are we doing this?" Hal and Guy fly towards Clark, and Guy says, "No hard feelings when we kick your asses?" And Superman says, "Of course not, but that's not gonna happen, right, Billy?" And Billy says, "Oh, hell no." Clark says, "Language," and Billy says, "Sorry, but Superman, thanks for the second chance," and Clark says, "Anytime." Guy hits Billy with a right hook and says, "I got your rock of eternity right here." Billy wipes the blood from his nose and says, "I'm like 15 years old, and even I know that joke sucked." We see Guy and Hal punching it out, and Hal says, "I like the will, I'll give that much to you." But Superman punches Hal, sending him flying, and says, "I'm sorry, Hal." Hal gets back up and says, Don't you dare do that. Omega energy, remember? It's funny though, I think a lot of us figured you'd be the one to beat Clark, which is why for my one item, I brought this." And Hal launches an alien parasite onto Clark's face. A Black Mercy, an alien parasite that nearly killed Clark once before. A baby Hal took from Sector 2811, encased in his very will. It attaches to its host pleasure centers and plunges them into a dream, a perfect, painless vision. And just like that, Clark is off the game board. Inside Clark's vision, he is Superman, but something is different here in his vision. Here, Superman has fixed everything, the future, and even the past. But how? And suddenly, someone is coming through time to meet him, but who? And then they arrive. His parents, Jor-El and Lara. Clark has never felt such peace, never felt so whole. And that's when he realizes none of it is real, and he comes back to reality, ripping the parasite off of his face. Hal and Guy are trying to attack Billy with a train, and Clark flies directly at it, destroying the construct entirely. Clark goes over to help Billy up and says, "I'm sorry I brought you into this." And Billy says, "Don't be sorry. Like I said, you gave me a second chance. That's who you are." But there was another reason why Clark wanted Billy in this tournament. He senses behind him that Guy and Hal are about to create green kryptonite with their rings. And Clark says, "Billy, I also chose you because of what you can do with your powers for others." And immediately, Billy understands what it is that he's saying. And he says the words, Shazam. And this gives Superman the powers of Shazam, on top of the powers that he already has. The looks on Hal and Guy's faces are absolutely priceless. Clark gets down in a sprinter stance and flies full speed at Guy and Hal. They tried to put up a wall to stop him, but it doesn't stand a chance, and Clark is able to take them out in a matter of seconds. And he will move on to the next round of DCKO.